I want to comment on that, Aiden, because you're correct in there's a whole different ballpark, a whole different game plan, a whole different scenario in the 80s as it related to the media. Big Coach was a master at controlling the media. Most of the times they didn't know whether he was serious or not serious. And then the fact that he had the control of the King's English, and he was 6'10", he threw them off in multiple ways. But as we mentioned, winning solves all that shit. But if you're not winning, then you got to be hustling double time, or your outreach game has to be a little bit more on point. 2020, I think you cannot do things the way you did it in the 80s. And that's the root of the program, dealing with the media that way. And it's almost like, in order to be successful now, your social media game has to be front and center. So I definitely agree with you. I do think there needs to be an awareness of what era we're in now. So I just wanted to piggyback on that. Next up.
I would agree with Aiden. It's one of my biggest pet peeves about the program right now is the lack of communication. How they need to let their SID, they need to let whoever's in charge of their social media accounts be creative, give them free reign to do things, to communicate, to post videos. When I saw the Duke University official Instagram account on the verses between Young Jeezy and Gucci Mane the other day, I'm like, this is Duke and Coach K in charge of that program. And they can do this. They don't have to. It's Duke.
George, I don't mean to interrupt you because I want you to finish. But you know what messes me up is I was watching the Duke Georgetown game. Lonzo was a freshman that we lost in the Meadowlands. And Duke was a freaking Adidas school then. And if you look at the love they get from the swoosh or Jordan, whoever, and the love we get from Jordan, it doesn't match to me. So I just wanted to throw that in because I'm old and I might forget. Yeah.
I think they just came up at a time when Georgetown was kind of going down. There was two East Coast schools going in opposite directions in the early 90s. But yeah, back to the topic at hand. That's my biggest pet peeve. And I think it goes back to the branding of the program. It doesn't really know what it wants to be right now. It wants to hold on to that past, but it's not really embracing all of it. And it's not changing the things about that past that it needs to. It hasn't moved forward. Like you all would talk about Kevin Braswell earlier. Like I bet you most people didn't know he was a coach, a championship coach in the Australian leagues. Yes, a player coach. Like I bet people don't know that Julian Vaughn is a expert basketball trainer now. Has his own gym. Like what is Hollis Thompson doing? What is Henry Sims doing? What is Jesse Govan doing? He just played for Coach Pat. So we need to celebrate all these guys. We need to create this new engagement. You're going to have to work harder than you did in the 80s because not only has the program changed, but the city around the program has changed.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily Chocolate City anymore. And you don't have that fan base that's hungry to go to those games. It's not as easy to go to those games. I grew up in PG County. The Cap Center was 15, 20 minutes from my house. We went all the time. Now that Black fan base that loved Georgetown so much is not there anymore. It's not coming to those games like it used to. You have to work harder to get those people back in that arena. So these are things that they have to be creative with.
Trey?
No, I definitely agree with Bobby and Aiden. With Bobby, you got guys like Mikal Hopkins and them who, they started off in decent leagues, and now he's playing. I'm pretty sure Mikal's playing like VTB, which is like damn near right under EuroLeague. But you don't know nothing about it unless you go really research and look at his page and try to see, where he's playing at. So I definitely think they need to promote, the guys in Europe more. And like Markel Starks, like he's playing VTB on one of the top teams in Russia.
In Russia?
Yeah, so I think you definitely need to promote those guys because a lot of guys that's getting recruited by Georgetown, they assume like none of us play basketball no more, but we do. So I definitely think that's a start. As far as what Aiden said, I definitely agree because I can speak for myself. When I was at Georgetown, we had a few students who wanted to, interview us and, try to do stuff like that. And, Miss Lori was our, media person and she wouldn't let us, like, we would get in trouble to talk to anybody outside with any type of media thing. So it was like
tough. She was tough.
Yeah, like Miss Lori don't like. She would tell like the thing was you wasn't afraid of her. You be like, man, whatever. You might still do the interview. Then Pat texting you or calling you on FaceTime, and now you get in trouble talking about you got to be here early. You got to do this. You got to do that. So it's like they only approved the people that they had a relationship with.
But what do you think the rationale behind that is? Not trying to go because again, I understand it from my personal experience. But again, that was in the 80s, and it actually made sense. It fed into the us against the world mantra. And when you have a coach, again, who is that commanding, and we're winning, it's not an issue. Why today would that still be a part or still be evident, in your opinion? Because you're the last dude that played there.
Man, to be honest, they try to keep everything behind closed doors. Like, it's a few things that they try to keep behind closed doors, but you can't keep behind. Like, even injuries. Like, they'll say such and such day to day, or they won't speak on it. But then you see somebody walking around with a boot on. Like, yeah, he injured. So it's just little stuff like that. It's just trying to keep stuff under the ropes. That's kind of like what they really try to do. I'm gonna speak on the inside thing with like with practice. So like my first year there, I could say some things that need to change was like we had great assistant coaches. I ain't gonna lie, like they was always supportive. They was there, but nobody on the staff felt like they could come to Coach Pat and say like, we need to change this or we need to change that. It was kind of like nobody really criticized anything that he did. And sometimes, me personally, this is the story I told you when we started losing, we was on a losing streak. I'm like, shit, we got to change something. Like we losing and we playing the same fives and the same in the same lineups every game. Like, nah, something got to change because obviously we losing. So the outcome, we want to win, right? So our whole thing was we would have practice, and practice you would have some dudes playing well, like just like you could go last year. If James Akinjo don't transfer, we probably don't even know how good Terrell Allen was going to be because he wasn't playing that much. Because James Akinjo was always playing because they just had a certain lineup that they always stuck to. Like regardless if we win or lose, we sticking with this lineup. So Terrell Allen, once James left, Terrell Allen started balling out, and it looked like he was the best option at the time for the team at the point guard spot, just because he was so unselfish he was. Just like with Javon Blair, if Mac don't leave, how we know Javon gonna get 20 points a game? At that time, I remember seeing people talk about Javon just comes in, he's jacks, don't play him. Now he's one of the main players on the team now. So I think I think what has to change too is not letting guys get comfortable in their role. Like if somebody, like if we're losing, fuck that. You're not safe. Like the next guy, be ready because at the end of the day, I'm gonna play who's gonna help me win. And that changes every game. So some games, Momo play better than me. Some games I play better than him. Some games Jacob had to play the point because we both were playing like trash. So every game is different, but you can't have the same rotations every game. It got to be different. And I feel like they kind of stick to the rotation every game.
I'm going to jump to you, Nathan. The current team, we've all had a chance to check out the first game of the season. Just my hats off to all the college players, anybody that's trying to get their game on. I mean, it must be tough during the pandemic. But the player side of me is like, how are you not better? Because you got nothing but time to work on your game. So that's the player side of me. I like to throw it at you, Nathan. Your current assessment of the team, what little you can talk about. Obviously, it's only been one game, but just your overview of what you're looking at, 2021.
Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to hit on a couple points before we kind of get to that. Going back to what Trey said about closed doors and not knowing a lot of news, we didn't know that Chudy was injured, right? Like Bobby asked that in the press conference as the first question, and if he hadn't asked, we just wouldn't have known. So I would definitely agree with Trey's point that they try to keep everything behind closed doors. Like it's very difficult to get access. Even still, it's difficult. You can't really have a casual conversation with a player or something like that. And so, and again, winning solves everything. That anything works when you're winning, but when we are where we are right now, we're not up to the standard that we need to be at, then changes have to be made. And I would say on this team, very small sample size, as you mentioned, one game, and there's a lot of turnover and a lot of new faces. And so I think they're still trying to feel each other out. I think getting a delayed start definitely did not help them. It can't be an excuse, obviously. But
everybody has a delay. Everybody's on the same playing field, right? Everybody's experiencing the same shit.
Right.
Without UConn had their players on campus in June.
Yeah, I would just say that this is a team that has a lot of turnover, and they're really gonna need to rely on Jamarco Pickett and Javon Blair to get them a bucket when they need and provide that kind of senior leadership. And I would definitely like to see Jamarco Pickett kind of step it up a little bit on both ends of the floor and try and be more consistent and be more aggressive.
Bobby, your assessments on the crew?
Yeah, well, I think that in year 4 of Ewing, they're further behind than they were in year 1, which is obviously not optimal. Pickett probably is best as like your 4th best player, and he's probably going to have to be your best guy, right? He's probably forcing a little bit the other night. It's just one game. I like the fact that he kept taking shots. There was times last year where he wasn't on and then he kind of disappeared, and on this team he cannot do that. So that what I would say is a positive, that he took 15 shots. And I think that hopefully hopefully for them, Jamari Sibley is only a 1 game not playing kind of guy, because as this season, as it's kind of just like a building block for going forward. You're going to need some of these guys to be part of going forward, assuming that Blair and Pickett leave. They do have the option of staying. That's kind of complicated, and we can talk about that in months from now. But I didn't see a lot of explosion out there, and I think that everyone's kind of hoping and counting and fingers crossed that Sibley provides them a spark and something that you look at and you say, okay, you got something there. And I think we saw that from Kobe Clark, right? So that's definitely positive. Dante Harris is someone who, when he verbaled for them last year, I do have some contacts, and they felt like he was a guy, contacts in college basketball. They thought he was a guy that had a chance to be somebody, and they weren't totally surprised that Georgetown offered a guy that no one had really heard of, because he has stuff that's there. So I think between Harris and Sibley, Clark, if you can get some foundation going forward, I think that's going to be the biggest positive out of this season. But yeah, going back to Blair and Pickett, they're going to be asked to shoot a lot, and hopefully they start hitting at a better clip.
George?
I mean, they're only going to be as good as Pickett is. And the other day, he just was not good at all. Blair has to be more efficient. I like what Qdis gave you, the 10 boards. Clark was a huge difference maker off the bench with the 10 rebounds in 12 minutes. I like what Dante Harris can give you for the future. Right now, they don't have a lot of creators, which is going to keep them from being explosive. They were better defensively, but it was only one game. We got to see how it goes moving forward. But it's all about Pickett, to be honest. He's a senior. He has to be better for him.
Aiden?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fan base is in agreement that this season's going to be rough for Georgetown. Whether they're bottom of the Big East or if they can get
I'm having the problem with the 11th, though. I'm having the problem with bottom. I can't come to grips with that.
Yeah, I mean, I got to reserve that spot for DePaul still. I just Dave Litt, I can't do that. But I mean, for me, I'm just looking for development. I'm looking for some improvement on defense. I'm just looking to get to 2021. I mean, you're gonna have, if you can get Aminu Muhammad, you're gonna have a top 10 recruiting class already. Right now, it's top 20. Pat's shown he can recruit, so I think I trust him there. In terms of what I want to see on the court this year, I think whether it be Jamari Sibley or Kobe Clark, I want to see one of those guys show promise. I think Clark got off to a great start. I think, in talking to a couple of people in the program, they like Jamari. I think he needs a little more seasoning, needs to develop his body a little bit more. But he's going to play a role for this team. I'm not sure that it'll come even against Navy. I think he might even not have much of a role in that game. But if you can get one of those wings to show promise for the future, I think you're good there. I think Dante Harris. I mean, I've been driving the Dante Harris hype train for a while. I'm a big fan of his game. I think he got off to a slow start against UMBC because of foul trouble, but he showed you some good things in the minutes that he did play. So I just want to see the young kids play well. I want to see the defense improve because, like George said, I mean, they don't have any creators on offense. So half-court offense is just going to be an absolute just nightmare for them this season. So they're going to have to improve their defense and try and turn defense into offense more often. And so, we'll see if that happens. I'm hopeful, but you just don't know. They have so many new faces, and I think this matchup against Navy on Tuesday is going to be a good test for them because their offense uses a lot of ball movement, a lot of off-ball movement. I think it's going to be a good test for their defense. But I'm just kind of looking to survive past this year and get to 2021 because I think that's when you're really going to have some pieces to work with.
I want to thank all of you for your the news on the recruits and who may be coming, because I completely block all that shit out. I can't process it until they're wearing the jersey, right? It's just kind of hard, and it's just so much information. And we know a 5-star can get to your spot and be a 2-star. So a lot of that kind of goes out the window. But I guess the thing that I always ask is, who are we? Like, what's the DNA of the team? Like, what do we hang our hat on? And that's one of those conversational questions I want to throw out to the group. If you could have a conversation with Coach Ewing off the record with no fear of your life, what would that conversation entail? And for me, it would be, why aren't we pressing? Like, why aren't we pressing from the locker room to the court? I want to throw that out to the group. If you had one question to ask Coach Ewing, what would it be?
Well, Gene, I think you can ask that one on the record. I think you got to go a little bit, more controversial, I think.
Oh, you're up, Bobby. Give me the controversy. Because the reason why I'm saying is I'm listening when I can listen to the press conferences because They're pretty, I don't get any information out of them.
Sure.
So it's just like standard BS. So, but I want to know, what does your team, we knew Georgetown was going to press you. We were going to win ugly. We were going to talk shit. We were going to represent that name on the front of the jersey. I'm struggling to find the DNA or the character of this team.
Do you think he was in the NBA too long? That the style that you're talking about is really like college style, right? And so, I mean, when I started following Georgetown, it was, a couple years after you had done your thing there, and that's who they were. They came out, they punched you in the mouth. Even some of John Thompson Jr.'s less talented teams, like 86 wasn't particularly great, 88, the early 90s, you still kind of knew what you were going to get from them, right? Like, you knew the style they're going to play. And those teams always found a way to make the NCAA tournament because they had an identity. This team probably doesn't. So when I look at them, it does seem like they're more NBA-ish, particularly in they're kind of a very NBA regular season defensive team. And by that, I mean, like, they don't play a whole lot. They just haven't since he's been there. But if I had a chance to talk to him off the record, there's a couple questions. And one of them would be, what did you learn from last season, right? Like, I'm not saying he's to blame. We don't really know why all those guys left, right? Maybe you might want to blame him for McClung if you believe that him coming out and saying that he was coming back, that hurt his feelings. But I can't imagine that was the entire reason Mac left, right? But it doesn't really matter. he recruited those guys. He had an NCAA caliber team last year, and they almost all of them left. So it'd be like, what did you learn from that? And I don't think that's something I would expect him to talk to us on a Zoom next week, or, you know, if we got back to a media veil in, you know, Thompson Center in his office or wherever. But that would be if I had a chance to be like, look, you know, what'd you learn? You know, maybe he learned that when you recruit a bunch of kids that flipped, right? McClung flipped from Rutgers, Akinjo flipped from Connecticut. You know, kids like that, they flip. It's like your girlfriend, right? You get a girl and she's with a guy, then like she's cheating, and like she ends up cheating on you, right? You can't be that surprised.
That didn't happen to me, Bobby, but I understand the analogy.
But you know what I mean? Like that's like
you.
So what did you learn? And like maybe you learned, you know, I think it was kind of like RG3 and Cousins before both those point guards got to campus. There already was two of them. Like maybe you can't have two alpha dogs, McClung and Akinjo, together. You know, I don't know. And that's why I'd be interested to know, because I'm making up theories based on what I'm seeing both on TV and in person. So I'd be like, look, you had a group that was good with, you know, you got your 7. He got his 5-star. He was a transfer, but you got him. So you had a really good roster, a really good team. You had depth in, you know, Gardner and Alexander and all this stuff. And now you're back to worse than when you got here. So what's the big lesson? How can you recover and get better? Because he's going to get a chance to get better. They're not moving away from him. And I'm not saying they should. But you know what I mean? So that to me would be like, what the hell happened? How can you learn?
Great. I love that. Trey?
To be honest, I would honestly sit down with him and ask him how can those guys that played for him like help the younger guys. Like I know right now, like I talk to Jamarco and Javon a lot. I ask them what's going on with the team, what they think could be better in situations like that. I know they both speak high on I think his name Jalen Harris. They both speak high on him because they say he a pass first point guard. So when I would sit down with Coach Pat, I would just be like, you know, us guys that play for you and stuff like that. Like, how can we honestly help the guys that you have coming in? How can we help guys, you know, prepare for you? Because at the end of the day, you're going to have to adapt to Coach Pat because, like, that's just, like, a lot of guys especially guys coming from high school. Like, I'm real happy about the recruiting class coming in. The Tyler Berry kid, I think he's going to be a stud. Even the Mutombo kid, I think that just brings more hype to the program, just a simple fact that his dad plays with him. So, as us older guys that play for him, I would just want to know, you know, what can we do to, you know, stay involved with the program and kind of help the guys, you know, keep their head on straight? Because we're talking about guys who's new to college basketball, new to the program. Like they're gonna hit a freshman wall. You're gonna hit that wall sometime. Even me as a grad transfer, I hit that wall. So, you know, like basically I would ask him that though, like what he expect us to do.
Nathan.
Yeah, I think kind of building off of what Bobby had said, I would want to learn what Coach Ewing's looking for in a recruit right now, and how is that different from when he was recruiting earlier? And then to Trey's point with the alumni engagement, I would want to ask him, how can you not only get some of these more recent alums involved and back into the program? How do you kind of show some of the older alums that may have felt a little bit more alienated? How do you show them some more love? Like, again, I go back to Reggie Williams. You had him on your program a couple of weeks ago, and some of the stuff that I heard, it was just sad. Like Reggie Williams is on the Mount Rushmore. He should be around this program a lot without any kind of question for why he wants to, you know, be around and get involved. And so I would definitely want to add not just the more recently graduated alumni, but some of the older guys as well. And then lastly, I would want to see what are the differences that he notices in coaching pros at the NBA level versus coaching at the college levels, and how has he had to adjust? Because like Aiden had mentioned, they kind of take the look of an NBA team where they've got like some more athletic guys, but Georgetown's identity has been the press and has been, you know, like more like that kind of swarming defensive college team. And so I would kind of want to ask what adjustments he's had to make and how successful he's felt in those adjustments.
George?
I would ask him why he's making his job harder than it has to be. I think he needs to rely on other people a little bit more, accept help. If he opens the program up to the older guys, come back, spread the word about the program, it would help him get the word out. He's been on the recruiting trail probably a little too much, having to go out and be the point man because maybe a few of his assistants haven't been able to get the job done the way he needed them to. So just why is he making his job harder? Again, back to his communications department, let them tell the message of the program. Let them spread the message of the program.
Hey, I'm going to shift just because I saw you over there smiling. So I know you got something good for me. First, let me hear what your one-on-one with Coach would be. And then I want to shift into what can each of us do in our own little world. Because I think you all do an incredible job in showing the way, just being yourself. But what would that one-on-one be with you and Coach? And then give me some direction that hopefully someone from the program is peeping our technique here and they can learn from. But your one-on-one first.
Yeah, I mean, I think my one-on-one is basically, I mean, it's kind of takes from everything that's been said already, but I mean, with regards to what Nathan said about alumni engagement, like how would you go about improving that? My question wouldn't be how, it would be why aren't you doing that? Because at this point, like Patrick Ewing isn't dumb. Like I'm sure he's like his son has been on Dog Talk. I don't know if he's been in a Hoya locker room, but I mean, if he hasn't, he should be. But his son is the alumni coordinator for Georgetown University, but is basically an unofficial liaison to the team, shall we say. And so like Patrick Ewing knows about these platforms. He knows about these ways to reach out to alumni and fans. And I would just ask him, why aren't you doing more? I think that would be an interesting answer to hear from him. Another question I would have is just, and it goes back to recruiting, is what happened, what have you changed about your recruiting strategy based on what happened from last year? In terms of, are you factoring character more into the players that you recruit? Galen Alexander was a player who had a checkered past coming in, and obviously that kind of came back to bite them in the butt a little bit. So I'd be curious to see how he's shifted things, this summer and moving forward. Because I mean, obviously it's working. I mean, the 2021 classes has been spectacular so far, and it does seem like whether that be the COVID recruiting, it seems like that's kind of benefited Georgetown, helped them out a lot. So I'd be curious to hear about their recruiting strategy. And then, I mean, pivoting to what we all need to do going forward. I mean, my thing is just kind of takes a village, all of us on this call right now kind of do our own part, whether that be Gene, you're a Georgetown basketball alum who's, really trying and doing a lot to kind of bring back that family atmosphere. And I think you're doing awesome work. And I think it's needed work too. I think Nathan, Bobby, myself, we provide the coverage that I think a lot of fans like to see. George as well with his analysis. I appreciate that a lot. I just think it takes a village, and I think everyone has a role to play. I mean, with what I've done with the graphics recently, I saw a void. Like we produce graphics at Georgetown for the basketball team, but they're not that great. I have a friend who works for Slam Magazine, and he texted me a few days ago and was basically saying like their graphics they're putting out right now are worse than a Division II school. And it's just like, we're Georgetown. Like if Duke can do this, then we can do this. Like you need to hire, so many of these teams now just have social media managers who just produce content for the team.
It's necessary. Yeah,
it's necessary. You have to market your program. These recruits, some of my older Georgetown followers on Twitter, get after me for highlighting the need to improve the social media game. They're just like, oh, it doesn't matter. Social media is whatever. But like for people like me and Nathan's age and younger, like social media matters. Like recruits, like they like to hear from people like a Jason Tatum at Duke. Like that stuff matters. And when it comes to a thing as simple as a graphic, it doesn't seem that important, but that gets engagement. Like if you produce good looking graphics that get shared by recruits, that get shared by fans, that increases that ups your brand.
I was afraid to send you my graphic from Hoya locker room because I thought you were going to say, yo, Gene, just let me do it.
You've been doing a solid job. I mean, I think those are solid graphics. I mean, the graphic that Georgetown's been putting out, like after the UMBC game, were just like straight up like squares and boxes. And it's just like, it's something like an 8th grader could do. It just needs to be better. And I think, I just think it takes a village. I think that, all of us here are trying to help fill that void. And I appreciate that greatly because Georgetown hasn't taken that initiative. I think until Georgetown wakes up, it's on us to keep, doing this work.
I want to give a shout out to my graphic person because I couldn't do the graphic. T-Best 25 on Twitter, shout out. It definitely takes a village. I want to hear what everyone thinks individually, but I want to digress for a second because I think what we represent in terms of a village is what Georgetown's all about. Right. I mean, there's no one point of view, but we all arrive at the same place trying to get better. And, not having the conversation, not being transparent, I don't think is an option. Right. Especially not now when we're picked to finish last in the conference. Like, I'm not saying I'm seeking advice or commentary from everyone, but I'm seeking that advice and commentary from people that I see are vested and do it every day. And again, that's why I reached out to the individuals on the Zoom, because I think all of you do it every day or do it in your own way and it's unique. And just a big time salute if I forget. It definitely does take a village. What's unique about us is all the things that are difficult. Right. I mean, we're this little school on the hilltop. We weren't supposed to be a basketball power, but now that we are, it's almost like, how do we further embrace that? And George, I'll hit you with that. How do we further embrace that? I know the DMV stuff, and I know it's like, I don't want to say it's low hanging fruit, but it's there. What's the direction? Boots on the ground.
That's basically it. I mean, you got to get your name out there. Right now, Georgetown has to outwork people. You got to outwork Maryland. You got to outwork Villanova. You got to outwork Duke. There's really, right now, especially with the way the world is right now, it's hard to convince a kid who has those type of options to go to Georgetown over Villanova. 2 national championships in the past 4 years. Duke is Duke. Kentucky is Kentucky. How does Georgetown walk into a kid's home and say, come play for me? You gotta be out there. You gotta have your name out there. You gotta have boots on the ground. You gotta know them from the time they were in the 7th, 8th grade. You gotta know their AAU coach. You gotta have them coming up for a team camp in the summertime when COVID's over. Have all the best AAU teams, all the best high school teams in the area or on the East Coast. Come see your facilities. Come check out the campus. Maybe have Jeff Green or Otto Porter just walk through while they're there. That's on accident, so it's not a violation or something. Get your name out there. Let them know what the program is all about, where the program is headed. Let them know that you want Georgetown to be the top school in the DMV. I mean, and you just got to outwork everybody. That's what it comes down to, because really right now there's nothing else that you can hang your hat on for the program. They haven't won in a while. They haven't been putting guys in the league in a while. Pat hasn't proven himself as a college coach yet. So you just got to outwork everybody.
Fellas, we just moved over an hour. I take your time seriously. It is a Sunday. What I'd like to hear from each of you before we sign off, or if you guys want to keep going, I'm cool with that too. What brought you to Georgetown? What's the connection? Because again, I think we're an eclectic crew, but I think it speaks to how diverse our fan base is. So I'd like to hear from each of you, your connection to Georgetown. Where'd that come from?
I guess I'll go.
Thank you. Everybody was like, hey, man, I think you asked that question already.
No, I mean, so for me, I'm from Massachusetts. I first knew about Georgetown from Roy Hibbert. I'm a huge college basketball fan dating back to when I was a kid. I was tall growing up. I played center and basketball. Roy Hibbert was like my player. I loved watching Georgetown games and watching Roy Hibbert. And so, when you're a kid, you don't really think about applying to schools. But, as I went through high school, I went to a Jesuit high school. And so, there's that Jesuit connection. And then I just kind of wanted to get out of Massachusetts, get out of New England, and Georgetown, obviously, I didn't go for athletics. It was the academics. And that obviously speaks for itself. So yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to go outside my own bubble. Kind of wanted to test my own boundaries, and Georgetown was a perfect fit. I mean, I love DC. I love Georgetown, its Jesuit roots. And I'm still here. I'm still in DC, and I love it. And I'm very glad that I went to Georgetown because of families. They're a little. I have this family. I have the Twitter family. I have my own family. My roommates and my friends at Georgetown. I just love the community sense that the school brings you. That's definitely been something that I'm very grateful for. So that's my story.
Trey, I feel like I'm a teacher. Trey, present.
Don't be shy.
Nah, man, just growing up, that's like the teams you always saw on TV when you watch college basketball, like Georgetown, UConn, even like the local schools like St. John's, stuff like that. And like also, growing up, I worked out a lot with Dave Edwards, so I didn't know like the history of it with him going there and stuff like that. And I just know a lot of people always spoke high about Georgetown. A lot of people from New York, Allen Iverson fans, Patrick Ewing fans. So, it's just always been like around me. Like even when you watch like movies like Above the Rim, Georgetown is like, the kids signed to Georgetown and stuff like that. So it's just, it's always been like a hot topic. And then once I like went there and stuff like that, it was just like a dream come true, to go to a university like that. Like Aiden said, the community and everything, it's nice people, the fans, the students. I wish we honestly would have interacted more with the community, honestly.
Love. Bobby?
So, grew up locally, Georgetown games at that point.
Lake Braddock High School, right?
Yeah. The great Ramel Ross made his way from Lake Braddock to Georgetown. He was a couple years younger than me. Just a kid that was really into sports, and one of my first teams was Georgetown. The Big East games were locally on WTTG Fox 5.
Oh, Fox 5.
And they were playing Providence. It was Alonso's freshman year, and they were down big, and they came back and they won. It was exciting. Decided I was going to watch their next game. My dad liked Maryland, but he didn't give me any crap for it. And then there was, you find out, what Jesuit means. You're like 10, you don't really know, but I knew we were Catholic. So there was that part of it. And I just got more and more into it. I had some family friends that had season tickets. So I got to either get one of their tickets or just go to Cap Center and get a $5 ticket, no problem. And then once I started driving, it was a big deal to be able to go there. I went to some of the banquets when Iverson was there. I was hooked.
Wow.
I was at a table with John Jacques, who was one of my favorite players at that time. It was pretty cool. So just as a kid growing up around it, and then in college, I got a little bit into journalism at the end of it. I came back home. I was doing high school stuff. And then I pitched to 106.7. I was like, hey, why aren't we covering Georgetown? Why aren't we covering George Mason? So I got into college basketball that way. And along the way, I've, kept up with different outlets. And then I guess I had my own season tickets when I got out of school, from Escherich's last season until the year before I started covering, which would have been Freeman and Wright's last year, I think. So I had my own season tickets. And then when I first started covering, I would give them away, but they became too expensive. And one of the things, Gene, I would say right now is if I wasn't covering the team anymore, would I go in on season tickets? And my answer to that is if it's the same cost as it was like 10 years ago, no. I'd still watch all the games. But I mean, it's a big deal to go to all those games, like there's a ticket donation before you buy your seat, and there's a lot. So, maybe by the time I'm out of this whole covering the team thing, the team will be back on the rise to the point where I'd want to throw some money.
You want to invest?
I don't think I would right now. I would, the time when you're, a family man, the time investment is,
It's
big
huge.
too.
It's
But
huge.
I couldn't see myself putting that kind of money into Georgetown tickets.
Yeah. I mean, look, man, I think we have some of the most unique, special fans. I mean, of course I'm biased.
Mm-hmm.
like I said, the Hilltop wasn't supposed to be a basketball power, and we are. And it's like, I won't say that we're chippy, but it's almost like it's not easy sometimes being a Hoya fan.
Sure.
From the access, from obviously we're losing now. From again, some of the communication for me just doesn't match who we are, right? I just look at, and this is off the beaten path. I look at Georgetown soccer. I became a Georgetown soccer fan when the women's made it to the NCAA, and then following the men's, and that's a program that's chippy. Like they're, and again, there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that that's who we are. But yeah, again, I can't speak enough about the crew that's been assembled here in terms of what you guys do and what you guys put out. If there's any other questions for the group, if not, I'm going to give you guys your Sunday back. I mean, I appreciate you all, you in particular, Bobby, because you brought up the family time a couple of times now, so I know you got things to do. But if anyone else,
what I think?
What's that?
I think that one of the slogans out of this is for the whole program. Why are you making this harder than it has to be? I think we should get that on a t-shirt. I think that, George, I got to know when I started covering the team, he had been, I don't know if he started that year. I think he was there before I was. Yeah. Very, very good guy to talk to, very calm, very mellow. Him, and I knew Ron Bailey a little bit from covering high school sports. But George was a face immediately that I became friends with. And I think that slogan, Gene, you might want to make part of this.
Okay.
Why is this harder? What did you say? You
I'm
said, why are you making this harder than it has to be?
The graphic for that.
Aiden or someone will do that. That's not a problem. But going back to that, it's just, what you just said, when all you're giving your fans to hold on to is winning, and you can do that, right? Like they were for a long time, if just hold on to the winning. But when the winning goes away, what else do you have to grab onto? And that's where they've been struggling, right? There's nothing else. So when you're bad and you're still not warm and fuzzy, that's sort of the issue. And it's not great to talk about problems without offering solutions. One thing I will say, and I think it might have been Aiden brought it up, and I just want to make it clear, I haven't asked Ewing or someone to be on a podcast. For me, and maybe this is just me not thinking highly enough about what I'm doing, is I wanted to establish it to a point where I could say, hey, look, I've had all these people on, and now I want to try and get, Ewing on or whatever. Maybe you do that earlier. So I think, and maybe Georgetown's made it that way to where I would think that, how would I ask that? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And maybe not to call out names, but I think someone did mention Lori, who was there for a little bit. She was a little different, and I've kind of changed what I was doing at that point. But I don't know if Gene, if you've asked for Ewing to be on, but I haven't. So, and that's something at some point I wanted to do. I think I wanted to get to a certain number of episodes. I think we're at like 70 something. I wanted to maybe get to a higher level rather than bring him on early. Maybe that's me discounting myself, but I do think that things like that would help. I know you've had his son on, so obviously he's aware that you exist and you're a player on his team. But
I'm kind of following your route as well.
I'm just
I want things under I want enough content.
Sure.
I want to be added value. I mean, I purposely put on the graphic. This is not approved by Georgetown Athletics.
I saw that. I like that.
Don't you think that's kind of dope? I mean, because this is the deal. Like, no one, especially on this Zoom right here, goes harder for the program, but we do it in a way that I think the fan base appreciates. Right? I mean, when we're warm and fuzzy, but we're still factual, right? Or we're still, giving our point of view. But I'm going along the same lines that you are. Like, I want to establish something that's worthwhile, or more importantly, better yet, I want to establish something that's here forever. So, and again, this is just me thinking out loud. So the next Georgetown graduate that play ball, that's interested in communications, this becomes a forum for that, right? I mean, who better to talk to than somebody like Trey versus me in terms of what's going on with the program? I mean, I'm ancient here. But again, what I saw was just a void. No one else is talking about it. Like no one else is grabbing the bull by the horns. So if anything, I think each and every one of you on this Zoom has pushed the university in a way. Because you can't continually see Aiden's graphic and don't look over to your graphic person and go, what the fuck, what are we doing? You know, you can't listen to George hit you with the succinct verbiage, why are you making this harder than it is, and not, you know, scratch your head. But again, I can talk to you guys all day. But I would like to get, you know, some sounding points from you or something inspirational to let the university know we're watching. We want you to hold us accountable, but we're holding you accountable too. And Nathan, I know you're there somewhere. Where's the youngin' at?
I'm here.
Give us some pros here. Talk to us.
Oh man, some pros. I don't know.
Well, when I say pros, some words. It doesn't have to be. Again, warm and fuzzy is to me equates to this is your program. You're a part of it. We're interested in what you have to say. You know, I think that's what we're advocating.
Here's what I'll say. So I kind of listening to what Bobby had said growing up locally when he did. I'm a local guy as well. I grew up in Fairfax, Virginia. Went to Jefferson High School, and I never got that experience. I could never, you know, turn on Fox 5 or ABC 7 or something like that and see a Georgetown game, even when they were, you know, relatively, like when I was like 12 or 13 years old when Otto Porter was on the team. I wasn't really invested. I didn't know a whole lot until I applied to the school for the academics and I got in. I didn't really know a whole lot. And so I think that having kids have that experience that Bobby had is a lot more difficult now when you're not winning. And so, like George said, you got to outwork them. You got to outwork Duke, Villanova, Virginia. You've got to outwork all the other schools to kind of win people back. And then winning will be a little bit easier when that happens. But you know, kids need to have that experience. And growing up, I didn't, and that's something that needs to change.
Yeah, fellas. Again, any questions you want to throw out to the group, feel free. If not, we'll wrap this up. Again, I'm here all day. If anybody else has anything they want to throw out, I'd love to hear it. Just to share for those that are still watching. This will be up on Facebook, also Twitter. It's a live stream. IG, I let run for an hour, and then when it shuts down, I don't want to interrupt what I'm doing here because I'm tech challenged. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to give some shout outs to some other Hoya people, but before I do that, you guys have anything else you want to add? I really appreciate everyone if I haven't said that enough.
Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me. I think it'd be good to reconvene at some point during the season, maybe, if that works for everybody. I know schedules are hard. I've mentioned mine a couple times, but you know, that makes sense.
Well, Sunday, 1 o'clock, we can always find one Sunday. But yeah, I'd like to do something, if not mid-season with you guys, definitely season ending. Again, this season is so up in the air. But yeah, it's definitely something I'd like to reconvene at a later date.
Yeah, and I'd like to say I think there is some hope for the future. With the class they have right now and the class they have coming in next year, I think they kind of have changed their recruiting strategy a little bit. They're targeting guys who will fit roles, guys who they can develop, guys who aren't necessarily who might need the spotlight. So I do like that. Like I said, if they get Muhammad in here next year, that kind of takes the expectations up to another level. But I do like where the program is heading. Obviously, I'm disappointed that it's where it is right now. But I do think that there is some light that I'm holding on to right now.
Yeah, I agree with George. I mean, I think there is some hope to be had. I mean, for me, I've only seen Georgetown in the NCAA tournament once when I was a freshman in 2015. And for me, I think this fan base is dormant right now, but I think there's so much potential. I think it can be so good. It can be so fun again. It's kind of like a make Georgetown great again type thing. I think, you know, if the winning comes, then I think things are going to get really fun. I think platforms like this will really take off, and I'm excited for that day. I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. I think those days aren't too far away. Hopefully.
I like the slogan. I just don't like what it's associated with.
I know it's tough. It sounds so good, but the original trademark owner is not so great.
Right. Agreed.
I think from covering college basketball, and there's not a lot of. I had Patrick Stevens on a couple weeks ago to go over, you know, how often do coaches, you know, miss the tournament X amount of years and what's the result, you know, and there was some positive stuff, but a lot of it was negative. But what I'll say is, you know, none of them Ewing kind of like fits into a category. He's kind of his own category, except for a couple guys, right? And I think in a positive note, he's so much more engaged and just into it than Chris Mullen, for my observations of being around Chris Mullen. Okay, Chris Mullen, to me, he made the tournament his last year. I think they had they were part of the first four and they lost out there. I think, if I'm wrong, I apologize. But you could tell that was a guy that was on his way out, right? And Ewing, to me, seems like he cares far more. And I said there's not a lot of comparisons to make to someone that's gone his career path into coaching. You know, he was never an assistant college coach. He was never a college coach at a smaller school, worked his way up. He's the guy. That's what Chris Mullen was. And I feel like Georgetown's in far better hands with him as opposed to what I saw from when Chris came through and for when I saw Chris up at Madison Square Garden for the Big East tournament. So I think that's a positive that Georgetown followers and fans should look to in a positive way. So I think that he's a good representation of, you know, going forward of someone that's engaged. I know that's kind of a low bar and I'm not trying to make it that way, but Chris Mullen just seemed like he wanted to be anywhere but coaching St. John's at times. And I don't get that from Pat. Obviously, Trey would know more about that than me from, you know, playing for him, but he seems far more engaged. And I think that's a positive for the Georgetown community.
Trey over there playing PlayStation or whatever.
That's fine.
He's in space like John Wall.
Definitely have something to say though, and I definitely have something to say. I don't know if you guys agree, but I think scheduling is also another big thing. I'm tired of seeing like Syracuse being our best non-conference game. Like honestly, I feel like if you want to get people like last year, you had the Texas and you had the Duke game, but I feel like every year, if you want to get people back out their seats and people coming back to watch Georgetown, I feel like you got to bring some of the dogs out. Like who wouldn't want to see a 8 or 9 o'clock game, Patrick Ewing versus Coach Calipari or something like that. Like that's stuff people want to see. No matter what, if the team ready and stuff like that, you gotta get them prepared and stuff like that. But you gotta have people play against the big dogs. Because at the end of the day, okay, we might not say the team is ready for that right now, but these future recruits want to play against competition like that. They want to play against the Michigan States, the Dukes, the Kentuckys on a regular basis. Because they know that's their way of showing out and showing that, you know, they belong at the next level. So I think one of the other things we can do is make a better schedule. Like I'm tired of seeing the Syracuse game, and I saw Syracuse almost lose the other night to Bryant. So I can't even picture how that game gonna be this year. But I mean, I think that's another big thing. Like use the marketing, use the promotion. You have these other big name coaches, and Coach Pat is already a household name just off of his career. Not like Bobby said. Like Bobby and them said, like not as a college coach yet, but he still has a name. Like if he plays against a Calipari or Krzyzewski, like everybody was hyped up for that Duke game. So I feel like that's another thing that they can work on, just the scheduling.
I think the scheduling would be major, particularly as we get better, as we're trying to get better. Because that, to your point, that that helps you immeasurably on the recruiting trail. I don't want to bring up the Nate Robinson fight last night, just because there's no reason. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But in terms of being creative, Snoop on the mic, oh my goodness. Like, I mean, I just think there's so many things we could do as a university, giving our resources, this group included, that whoever that point person is, and I'm not pointing any fingers, I don't know who that is. I went to the school, too many years ago, but whoever the point person is, take advantage of social media, take advantage of external resources, because internally, I think it's challenging. So I don't necessarily want to end on that, but I definitely want to voice that, because I hate to say it, the why are you making it so hard by George Barnett is the major takeaway from the conversation. So anybody else have anything else to add? If not, Georgetown Hoya salute. I'm gonna give some shout outs if you guys don't mind, unless someone else has something to jump in with. And I appreciate you bearing with me because I'm horrible at giving shout outs. But I'm just gonna start with George Barnett is at Bracketville on Twitter.
Bracketville, USA.
Say it again.
Bracketville, USA.
Bracketville, USA. Nathan is at Chin Republic. I get that right, Nathan?
Yes, sir.
Trey is, of course, at DAT _ boy BOW_TD. Aiden is, I mess Aiden's up too. Aiden Curran _
Yeah.
Get that right? Yep. And who am I leaving out?
Bobby.
Bobby? At Bobby Bancroft. The shout outs I want to give is to people who've been holding it down. At MBS Sports Hour, at Casual Hoya. Big shout out to your man Geiger over there, Bobby.
Yeah.
At Super Eric Rogers, at Kemp Keeping It Real, at Patrick Waring, at MPG Hoya, and at MB Muse. If you can follow those people on Twitter, it's nothing but love there. Again, I want to thank everybody on this call, man. We'll be in touch. I'll be following you on Twitter. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Navy on Tuesday.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll all be watching in our own way. Don't hesitate to reach out if you guys need me for anything. I appreciate everyone.
Thanks, Gene.
Georgetown,
Appreciate it.
all right.
I appreciate it.